Hey guys, so welcome back to MBD Blogs Season 2. Kind of in this series, it's a little bit more different. We basically got inundated with questions, and the videos didn't even get loads of views, but yeah, we still got loads of questions. So there's kind of more questions for us to answer, and of course we are addressing more topics with you guys. So yeah, so keep up to date with us by clicking the subscribe button above. This one is, as you may have guessed by the title, knowing your setup. It's really, really important that you guys know your setup, what you're going to look like, everything like that. So we've just got basically a few points for us to go through. A few. And this is hopefully going to help you to know your setup. So of course the first one is to have a vision for your setup. So if you're thinking about, like, I'm going to go and buy a new setup, and even if you have to do it over time, because obviously money is always tight for us DJs, still keep that vision in mind. Like, even do a little doodle of what you want your setup to look like, and you will find that it really, really helps to eventually create this really good image that you can then project to other people and say, you know what, this is what my setup looks like, this is what I look like when I'm performing. So when you go to doodle your drawing, or you have it imagined in your head, obviously one of the things that you want to make sure is that the equipment that you are thinking of is actually mobile enough. You know, like the speakers that I carry, it does say on the PV website that, you know, these are for DJs, they're for clubs, they're for mobile work, they're for singers, bands, whatever. But, and I can honestly say this after about 3 years of using them or something like that, these things aren't mobile. You know, they're just really not. They're big, which I don't mind. They're heavy, which I don't mind. But yeah, they're just not mobile enough for me. But the speakers are actually really, really good because, and sorry, I was getting distracted by Coronation Street then. I do love the speakers because my speakers are able to do a 500 watts continuous, and then I think it's 1,000 watts peak aside. And when you look at, you know, other speakers which are passive, and you know they produce the 500 watts constant running, they're kind of a lot bigger than the ones that I'm using. So in a way I'm really glad to have them, so, you know, don't get me wrong, but if I was to recommend them to someone, I would say get them installed somewhere. Do not take these with you because they are heavy. The other thing with obviously weight and that sort of stuff is have a look at lightweight versions of what you're after. You know, one of the things that you can now get your hands on is like lightweight amplifiers. Like PV came out with the IPR series, I think it's IPR, and although we haven't got the digital version of the amps over here in the UK, fingers crossed coming soon, and I swear to God I'm so going to get one of them digital ones because they look even better. So but yeah, there's lightweight amplifiers. You know, if you went to go and lift the amplifier that I carry at the moment, which is the PV 1500, you try to pick it up with like 2 fingers, you're going to break your fingers. This new IPR series, if you try and pick it up with 1 finger, you can pick this thing up. It is really, really light, and you know, they still perform as good, they're still as reliable, they are still PV, but they're lightweight, so you don't have to spend as much petrol transporting the amplifiers around. You're not going to have to break your back every time you go to set up. Excuse me. I don't know. I'm not starting with a cold, I don't think. I hope not. So yeah, so the lightweight versions of things. And of course, flight cases as well. You know, sometimes people think, oh, flight cases, you know, oh god, they're going to be massive and we're able to fit one light inside them, but there are some really, really good designs for flight cases these days. Even if you want all of your wires put away at the end of the night, and you normally put it into like a rucksack sort of thing, like I used to, but then the next time you open it, all your leads are jumbled up together and you have to spend about half the time of your setup trying to untangle all these wires, only for them to go back in and get tangled up again. But there's a new one by, I think it's Ariba Cases, and it's a backpack design, but it's got loads of different separate compartments in, so you can put all your different wires in and they will stay separate. And then, of course, if you don't need certain leads for one performance, but you might for another, you can leave them in there just in a different part, you know. So have a real good look round at what there is in the market, I suppose is my main point of this. Use the equipment correctly for the audience, and this is kind of something which I learned many years ago. I used to carry with me a SoundLab SP 250 with me, which is 125 watts a side, and obviously 250 watts total, but the amplifier had a problem that when you turned it up to maximum and then on the mixer you turn it up to maximum, you would get the most distorted, crappy sound you would ever hear in your entire life, and it was awful. And you know, you couldn't turn the volume up too much because it would go distorted, and people would complain about that. And it really got to a point once when I was doing a high school gig with this amplifier, and I was on, and you know, things were going fine, people were up dancing, and then a band came on with their equipment, and you know, they got everyone up dancing and everything, and it came to their break. No, actually, I think they did one set, came to the end of their set, and I had to start up again, and I turned my stuff on to maximum, and it was distorted, and I still had people coming over going, can you turn it up a little bit? And I was just like, look at all these red lights I've got, it won't go any higher. It just won't. So the best thing which I can advise, like amplifier wise, is to buy big but only use small. You know, I've got this PV1500 at the moment, which is 500 watts a side. It's very, very rare that I'm going to need to use the full 500 watts a side, but I've got it there in case I do. And it's not a case of I go out to every gig and I'm using it, you know, from the moment it's turned on to the moment it's turned off, full, and it's, you know, running at maximum all the way through. I've got reserve, so to speak. You know, if people want it louder, I can turn it up, and if they want it quieter, I can turn it down. Whereas with my old amp, I couldn't turn it up anymore because it was already full, and it, you know, it just didn't go well. So yeah, so have the equipment right, but there again, have a backup ready. Don't drop your pen. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so have a backup ready. You know, if you have an amp that goes down partway through a gig and you don't have a spare amp with you, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, just try and have as much of a backup as you can. The other thing is, of course, when you are thinking through of a new setup, think of what we call CTC, and that stands for cost to customer. If you're going to go out and you're going to spend £10,000 on all this new equipment and everything, and it looks great, it sounds great, and everything about it is great, but then you are turning around and charging your customer like £100 an hour, plus VAT, plus this, plus that, that's kind of unacceptable. You know, one of the things that we as DJs have to understand is that yes, we have all of these amazing costs and it is expensive buying equipment for DJs, but if we buy over time, it becomes a little bit cheaper for us, and obviously cheaper for our customer, because we don't have to charge as much to try and make back that money as soon as possible. So always think of your cost to customer, or CTC, or C2C. No, CTC, I prefer that. Okay, so obviously we move now on to Ask MBD, and for those of you who haven't guessed, this is my second time filming this video, and I want to explain to you why, because I normally go on about equipment and how to buy the right stuff and everything, and I kind of made a bit of a mess of mine. No, don't go running. I bought some batteries, an 8-pack of these batteries, new Ultra, by Sony. So them batteries, they are the worst things in the world, I swear to God. I had to film this whole video within 10 minutes, and within 10 minutes I went through all of the batteries, like all of them, so I'm not impressed with Sony. I can't lie. I hate them. So yeah, Sony aren't in my good books. They haven't been for a while. Can I set my camera back up straight now? That better? Can you see me? Okay, so we've had questions in. Obviously, not all of the questions are going to be kind of related to this video, because it's the first time we've done the video. But we actually did have people question us about these topics before we actually came to film them, even though we've had the topics listed down to talk about anyway, and we've had all these people ask us questions about them anyway, so it's handy. So, are lightweight items just as good as the original versions of them? Yes. When replacing items, should I upgrade? I would actually say yeah. Interesting that you should mention that, because I did upgrade my lighting. I was using the old halogen bulbs, and these lights that have a duty cycle, and oh god, it was a nightmare. So when these lights broke, and I think it's in one of these videos on the channel, and I said, when these lights break, I'm not replacing them, I'm not repairing them, I'm not doing anything. They're going straight in the bin or getting sold for parts. So yeah, and I started buying more LED lighting, which is good. So yes, so I would say upgrade if you can when you go to buy new equipment, like replacing items. How do DJs on YouTube become adverts for companies? I don't really know what you mean by adverts for companies, because these people aren't walking adverts. Basically, sometimes what these companies will do when they're making sound and lighting equipment, and it has been known to happen quite a few times, they'll send DJs items to review, and these companies will say, just stick it straight on YouTube and we will see it. And they want people to be honest with their review. So if they send someone a dance floor light, and the DJ goes, no, I really don't like this light, look at it, it's awful, and he can point out the failures in it, the company's going to sit up and listen. If the DJ says, I like the light, but I prefer it on the ceiling, again, they're going to listen. And if the DJ on the review says, oh my god, this is the best light ever, you've all got to go and buy one, the company's made up. But they look for honesty, because companies these days understand that they can't just leave an item out there and just expect everyone to love it. You are always going to have critics, and if a company knows what their critics are saying, they can address them issues and hopefully win over the critics. So I don't think it's that DJs are adverts for companies. I think it's just that companies have seen DJs review items before and think, okay, we'll send him an item of ours, see what he's got to say. What are the basic items to take to a gig? I've actually had this question before. It depends what sort of gig you're doing, I've got to be honest, but as long as you take like speakers, whether they're powered or passive, and obviously if they're passive, the amplifier to go with them, like a microphone, something to play music, a mixer, and if needed, a couple of lights, and they would kind of be the basics. So yeah, that's kind of it. So that's it for the video. So thank you for watching. I hope you've all learned a little something. I know I have, and that's not to buy Sony batteries ever again. So thank you to Duracell for this video, and I will see you guys soon. See you later.